time to start constructing all of our scene and putting each of the elements that we've created in separate Blender files into one. Because we want to have a master project file that contains all of our scene elements, all of our textures, so that we can export it together as an individual FBX file over into Sketchfab. This now becomes kind of like a distribution project file. It's no longer about individual assets. It's about collecting all of those assets into one scene file so that we can send it to the renderer together. In this case, it's going to be Sketchfab. So this is my little scene. I've exported all the textures for my scene that I made over in Substance Painter, and I'm ready to start getting everything together, except I need to get the turtle in there. That's an important part of this workflow. When I was working with the scene, I made the lily pad individually and some of these other project files individually, but I didn't ever get the turtle in there. So let's go ahead and append the project file and get our turtle in there. And the cool thing about working inside of Blender is that when you incorporate your images into the Blender file, all those images will be referenced correctly. So here's the turtle file that I've been working with. So I'm going to append it into the scene, and I'm going to do the objects, because the objects for both the turtle and the shell are going to, of course, include the geometry, but it's also going to reference the materials and their textures as well. Let's append it into the scene. And there they all are. Well, right now it's kind of sitting inside the log itself. So let's make a couple small changes to our turtle so we can pose it and get it into a good location inside of my larger scene itself. Now, right now I have two different objects for the turtle itself, and I'm a little concerned that when I start manipulating one, I might not manipulate the other. Larger point being, I don't want to move the body and not move the shell. So I want to make a small little connection between these two objects. And the simplest way to do this is through what's called a parent-child relationship. We're basically going to make a relationship between two different objects, and wherever one goes, wherever the parent goes, the child inside of this system is going to go along for the trip. Now, the selection order here is really important. In my mind, I always select the child first, and then I'll hold down the Shift key and grab the parent second. If you look closely, the color of the outline in object mode is different. The active object, as it's called, is orange, and the inactive object, but still selected object, turns into a darker orange, so be mindful of that. If yours looks like this, where the shell is orange and the body is this darker orange, you have the order wrong. And another way that I like to think of it is, in my mind, I want this object to be connected to that object. This to that. With the selection completed, we can go into the object pull-down menu, and we're going to go into the parent category. And this is it, just object. And voila, just a simple little relationship. If you look very carefully over here in your outliner, we haven't lost anything, but we're starting to make a hierarchy. Now the shell has been parented to the body. We still get access to all of its data containers, so things haven't really changed. But now I can just simply move my body, and my shell comes along for the ride. Ta-da! Pretty cool. All right, now let's figure out where I want my turtle to go. I think I'm going to have it a little bit low on the log. Maybe appear as though it's just climbed out of the water. That might be kind of fun. Yeah, and I still got some work in here that I need to do on posing the character to make it look just absolutely perfect how I want it to look. But generally speaking, that's kind of a good little look. I'm pretty pleased with that. Yeah, let's start looking through the camera lens here and seeing if that's kind of what I want. And I think that is. I started to experiment around with the composition of my shot a little bit earlier, and I'm pretty pleased with this. This is going to be a good little image. I got to figure out what I want to do for the background still, but I'll have my lily pads in the foreground, and I'll use some wonderful depth of field to draw focus to my turtle sitting on this little log. So with all of these elements included and appended into our Blender file, now is a very, very, very good time to save a new version of your Blender project file. This version is going to contain all of the assets and elements that's eventually going to be saved as a singular FBX. We're not going to be able to incorporate multiple FBX files over in Sketchfab. Everything's going to be in one, and I'm pretty pleased with how all of these elements are working together to create the illusion of my fun little pond scene for my turtle. So the appending system works very well. In addition, if we were to change over into Material Preview, all the textures have come along with my turtle itself. It's taken a minute to load all of it in, but there they all are. So that's the great thing about appending our scene files together. It's not this just the object. It's all the other data containers that are associated with that object as well. The appending system in Blender is great because it allows us to reuse these assets in a very intelligent way, in a very non-destructive way inside of some very large scene files.